That morning, after the clock's iron music buckled out its final tone and the house had again tumbled into dead quiet, low rose, he was still weary from the torrid dreams, the visions of hurricane and wreckage, though neither deluge nor drought had struck the island in some time. The lamp was out and blackness had invaded the room, deepening the corners and empty spaces so it seemed suddenly enormous. Balancing himself on one elbow, he leaned into the fuzzy outlines of Miss Sylvie's shoulders and chest, as he had done every morning for the 30 years of their marriage, listening for the steady rise and fall of her breath. It wasn't that she was ill or that she was prone to maladies, but there was always the fear steep in him that she'd die sudden and abandon him. Hey guys, I'm back and I'm here to do my review of The Pagoda by Patricia Powell. Okay, now, this book I've had for quite some time on my bookshelf, and I'm going to thank Christy over at Khia Comments here on BookTube for suggesting that we read this one together to discuss on our regular chat over on Instagram. So every 3 weeks we discuss a book. The first one we did, we discussed Kylie Reid's Such a Fun Age. And this is our second one where we're discussing The Pagoda. Okay, this book is supposed to be an Asian perspective of living in the Caribbean. Now, I would say the vast majority of the books that I have read that are set in the Caribbean, that are by Caribbean writers, discuss mostly blacks living in the Caribbean. The only other one that I've read that isn't the case is A House for Mr. Biswas, and that's by V.S. Naipaul. So that discusses the Indian origin people that live in the Caribbean. Now, this one discusses the Chinese that are living in, that go over to the Caribbean. The only thing is, the writer is not Chinese. She is Black Jamaican. So, be that as it may, I'm going to start by telling you that this is, in my opinion, the 2-star book that could have been a 4-star book. Now, I'm going to explain. The main character in this book is called Lo, and Lo is presented in the beginning of the novel as a man. It's as we come to understanding how Lo arrives in Jamaica, we realize that Lo is actually a woman who, once she arrives in Jamaica, is encouraged to continue to pretend that she's a man, supposedly for her safety, because this is a part of the island where it's mostly men and they're workers and they're doing the hard labor on the plantations. Now, what we do is, as we move along this story, it's the fact that Lo is presenting herself as a man is the reason why we learn a lot of the things we learn in the story. Like, if she was a woman, we would not be privy to a lot of what we see in the story. Now, first of all, there are a lot of things that I learned in reading this novel, and one of the main ones is I hadn't realized that Chinese people actually came over a little bit like Africans, which is at the bottom of the boat, you know, being treated like shit, and then arriving in Jamaica to do the hard labor. Now, as someone pointed out to me, yes, they did come like that, but once they arrived, they weren't treated nearly as poorly as the Africans were when they were brought over. So, but even so, I don't know why in my mind, I just thought that it was more like a financial transaction. So Asians came over with the idea of making money and that kind of thing. But some did, but others came over like that. So we basically explore a relationship between Lo, who is married for 30 years to a woman, and they're living in a plantation. Now, the woman he's married to is a quadroon, and she is described as being very fair-skinned, so she almost looks white. And not only that, but the person who sets up this whole relationship is called Cecil, and Cecil is a British man who is going back and forth on this slave trade, thing. And so he sets this relationship up. So we have Cecil living in the house, Lo pretending to be a man married to the quadroon lady. And inside of this house is also a servant who used to be an activist, but who was, after she had, I guess, organized too many revolts and uprisings, they threw her in jail and they beat her down. And when she finally came out, she just remained silent because she was afraid of being killed. And then they have the son, and he is a black man who beats the workers. Okay. He is a very dark black man, and he beats the workers in the name of the quadroon woman. So in this situation, what we see is Cecil is sort of like, I guess you could say, symbolic of the colonist. And all of the other characters are sort of like reproductions of colonialism. And right from the beginning, so this isn't really a spoiler because it's almost like in the first, I think, 10 pages of the book or something, Cecil dies in a fire. So they have a shop, and Cecil dies in the shop. It is burnt to the ground, and he dies in there. And so when he dies, it almost like it unleashes this idea of what's going to happen with all these people. How are they going to survive? How are they going to continue on without their leader, or their glue? So it's a lot like what happened when the British decided to give freedom to, Jamaica, and they left. What happened? How did the Jamaican people go about surviving and maintaining and recuperating? How did they do all this? So that's basically what the story revolves around. And I must say, the reason why I'm saying that it could have been a 4-star book is because, in my opinion, there is one particular thing that's missing, and that's the beginning story of Lo. So that beginning story of her living in China, growing up in China, because she is basically sold and married off, and you don't get the full story or relationship between Lo and her father. And so that crucial part of the story is missing. And for me, it was difficult for me to understand the complexities of Lo because I didn't get her full past. The other things that are a little bit difficult is the writing. Now, Patricia Powell can write, okay? But in this particular book, what kills it is that she overwrites. Like, there are so many moving pieces at the same time that you're grasping to understand exactly, okay, so what am I supposed to be focusing on here? Because she does a lot of overwriting, and it makes it difficult to get to the crux of things. Now, this book is not long. It's not even 250 pages. It's 245 pages. But yet she will do something. And another thing, I'm going to get to this. Another thing that is difficult that she does is there are moments in the book where she writes these scenes that are, they're scenes that are written in like a reduced sized paragraph in the middle of today. So it kind of looks like this. So this right here, that's like a memory of some kind, except it's a memory that is described in such a vague manner that two people could think two different things about them. And this is what happened. It was one that we read and I said, I thought this happened. And she went, oh no, I don't think it's that. I think it's this. So she has those scattered throughout the book, but they don't help with understanding this character of Lo. Now, do I suggest that you read this book? I say yes, read this book, because I think it has some interesting things that we're not used to reading in Caribbean Lit. Now, it has come to my attention that when this book came out, Patricia Powell was accused of cultural appropriation because she was a Black Jamaican writing about the Chinese living in Jamaica. And apparently that there was a Chinese writer who was in the process of writing a book about this. I don't think it ever got published, but that's what she was accused of. So, you know, this could be a good discussion for us. I don't usually do this, like a discussion amongst a review, but this book brought out a lot of things for me. So why don't y'all comment down below and tell me what you think about that? Do you feel like that is also could be considered appropriation, that it's a Black Jamaican woman writing about Chinese coming over to Jamaica and how they fit into the fabric of the island of Jamaica? So that's all I have today. I say read this book. I think it'll get you thinking and wanting to discuss with other people who have read this book. So that's all I have for you today. Bye.